whether you've gone down this rabbit hole yet or not, you can agree there's something off happening in Hollywood, especially with children. I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic, and we are Unapologetically Outspoken.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. So while Tara is out living her best life and going to all these really cool places right now, I have our podcast manager, Erin, that's going to do a really fun conspiracy episode. So Erin, welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, hi, sweet Stephanie. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm
And
excited
yes,
too.
she's very sweet. I'm a subpar manager, but I'm doing my best.
Oh, she's amazing. Amazing. And
Oh,
we're so grateful for you. And
thank
you like conspiracies, maybe even more than I do. I don't know. So I think today's going to be fun. We're going to go down a pretty deep and dark rabbit hole.
you. Yeah.
But, I was thinking about it this morning as I was getting ready for this. I was like, when did I first start kind of like waking up to this? And I think we might have talked about this before when you were on. And
Like
it was,
the red pill moment.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was that like, what was it called? Out of the Shadows documentary. And
You
I
and I
think
both kind of
2020.
shared that. That was because I don't think
Right.
Tara had seen it at that time.
Yeah. And it was
Yeah.
like before then, everyone that talked about this stuff, I'm ashamed to say, I was just like, oh, they're crazy. Those crazy
Yeah.
conspiracy theorists. But when I watched that movie, it's not like all of a sudden I was like, oh, I just believe all of this stuff, but it just kind of, opened up something in my
Yeah.
mind. And then it was like all of a sudden I started noticing patterns,
Yeah.
like why do pretty much all child celebrities grow up to have mental illness or be addicted to drugs or die young? And okay, like they have everything that everyone wants, they have money, they have fame, they have access to whatever. So if things are that bad, why don't they just leave, or are they being threatened or blackmailed? And it just kind of like, it was all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, we might not all agree on why child celebrities are this way, but we can all agree there's something going on there because
Yeah.
there's a pattern, and almost every Disney kids star grows up to be, a drug addict or mentally ill, or there's things that are just off and not right. So
Yep.
I wanted to kind of start with that to put that in a perspective, because I'm sure anyone listening, whether you've gone down this rabbit hole yet or not, you can agree there's something off happening in Hollywood, especially with children. So that brings me to the guy we're going to talk about today, who's Isaac Kappy. And Erin, why don't you want to explain kind of who he is? Because it's not like he's an A-list celebrity. He
No.
was more like a, what do you say, maybe C-list celebrity. He was in a few things.
Yeah, very, very talented guy. The more actual research I did on him, before this all started, I honestly had just heard his name, and I remember thinking, what a cool name. Like, it's
Yeah.
just kind of a neat name. Yeah, it's real catchy. Yeah, so basically, I have just I try to write up like just a short little kind of background, not going into everything, but so Isaac Kappy, he was born in 1977 in New Mexico. I just call him Kappy, just keep it short. So Kappy was into the arts and acting at a young age. He later was in a band with his best friend, and they produced a song that was picked up by the Ford Company. And this kind of, I think the whole process of that just kind of ignited his passion for, going to Hollywood and everything like that. Well, they knew they were going to have to move to Los Angeles to kind of get things going. And I think him and his friend both either moved together or whatever, but they ended up in Hollywood. And yeah, Isaac had a couple of small roles. I know he was in Thor and a couple other little things like that. And he would do little side projects with his buddies. from everything I like looked into, he was just a very charismatic guy, fun to talk to, good sense of humor. So I mean, people like that I think are just easy to have around, you know. And yeah, so basically, he just kind of started mingling with like the who's who of Hollywood, kind of. And I think probably people, again, someone like that's fun to have around at parties and kind of, you know, get things going. And so one thing about Isaac was, Kappy, he had always been interested in conspiracy theories. That was one thing, like, through all my research, even going back to when he was younger, he just was always in conspiracy theories, and he would always kind of, like we were talking about before we started recording, like, sensationalizing things.
Right.
And that kind of thing. He seemed to, from the little bit I found about his family, he seemed to have a decent home life from what I found, but there really wasn't a whole lot, to be quite honest with you, that I could find. And basically, you know, as you can imagine, like, because he was involved in Hollywood, I think he heard a lot of things and saw a lot of things that just normal people like us don't see.
Yeah.
And yeah, so basically how it all kind of went down was in March 2017, he was hanging out with Seth Green. And I think most people, well, at least for me, when I think of Seth Green, I think of Dr. Evil's son in Austin Powers. Yeah, right. Scott! You know, like, and I'll be honest, I have always just adored Seth Green. I thought he was hilarious and funny and just this cute little guy. I know he's been in a ton of other movies, but so basically, it sounds like Isaac Kappy and Seth Green and his wife had all become really close. Like, they were just good friends. They hung out all the time. I guess they loved playing this game called Mafia Wars or something like that, which I have a funny story about that I'll tell you later. But anyway, he was there one night, and I guess they were hanging out. And Seth Green, and this is like a house in the Hollywood Hills, I'd imagine, he kind of like dropped a hint to him. And it was something very awkward about, like, they were hanging out in the house, and he went to this certain room, and Isaac talked about how there was like these stuffed animals all over the place, and he thought that was kind of strange. And then I guess he opened up this like secret, kind of like a bookshelf, and they went into this room, and there was like bunk beds in there. And then there was like all these stuffed animals. And that's when and again, this is all supposedly, Seth Green basically told Kappy something like, "This is where we keep the children, ha ha ha," like joking around. And in the videos, which I'll kind of play a little bit of them as we go along, he kind of mentioned like it seemed awkward, but at the same time, like, if you're hanging out with someone that you care about, a friend, and they say something awkward, you usually just kind of write it off, like, oh, that was weird, but maybe I didn't understand it or whatever.
Well, especially
you know.
someone like Seth Green, because I feel like he's the type that is always joking around, not being serious. So you'd be like, oh, yeah, he's full of shit kind of thing.
Absolutely. And that was one thing I remember even Kappy was on Alex Jones. And Alex Jones actually said that. He goes, well, do you know if he was joking around? And he's like, absolutely not. He was being serious, you know. But yeah, so basically, he opened up the secret bookcase and showed him that. And Kappy just said he felt really weird and awkward about it. And then, but he kind of wrote it off. And then about a month later, Seth Green basically reportedly told him they were having a dinner together. And I guess they were eating dinner, and Seth Green mentioned something about, we need to have a talk about chicken. And now, I had no idea, to be quite honest with you, what that meant. Like, I've heard the stories about pedophilia verbiage, which, like, you know, like...
and stuff like that, but I don't think I've heard chicken.
Me neither, exactly. And so, and so basically, I guess, and which I found out was crazy, there's actually, like, FBI official bulletins that have all these, and I can read some of them off to you. It's so creepy. And they're basically things they found in like the Anthony Weiner laptop and the emails. And if any of your listeners haven't looked into that,
that's sick.
It's fascinating, but it is a dark, dark hole. And I hate to say it, but there's a lot more research showing that it's true than not true, which is just terrifying.
Well, let me just say why I started believing this stuff could be true. Because when I first heard this, I'm like, come on. You know, especially with like the pizza stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's weird that they're using this language in emails. Like, why are they always talking about pizza? But like, come on, really? But then I started seeing people posting on social media, places like Etsy Wayfair, where there would be a post for something with a code word and the price would be like $20,000. And they were like, this is the black market. They're selling, essentially selling kids. And when you see enough of that, you're like, yeah, this is not normal. And then when you have places like Wayfair and Etsy coming out and saying, yeah, we're taking those down, we're aware of them, it's like, okay, this is happening. It's, we can't really keep ignoring it. But then the other thing that just happened recently, when Tara and I were doing the episode on the wildfires in LA, she was talking to her contacts, the LAPD, and they were saying how, and she talked about this on the episode, but how someone on the street of one of these mansions that they had to go and look through the house because they thought someone was robbing it. One of the guys on the street said, yeah, there are tunnels under these homes that connect to like all the different homes. And they alluded to like, there aren't good things happening down there. And I've heard that now so many times. I've heard it with the whole Diddy thing coming up. Also, I remember back in the day seeing like a MTV Cribs or whatever on the Playboy Mansion and how there's tunnels that connect to all these houses to the Playboy Mansion. So just knowing that, I'm like, okay, the Seth Green thing, opening up a bookshelf and there's like a hidden room or passageway, not that far-fetched. We've heard this now, a lot of times. So I just want to throw in that context because when I first heard this stuff, I was like, this is crazy. But then over time, I'm like, maybe it's not so crazy after all.
No, well said, hon. And that you're absolutely right. And that's what's interesting about researching these types of stories is it is fascinating how much it's like a spider web. So like, and I had that hard time when I was researching this because I would start researching Kappy, going down there, and then that would lead to, Anthony Weiner's laptop, and then that would lead into the Rothschilds, and it would, you know what I mean? And it was kind of one of those things where you start thinking in your mind, and then like you just said about like, I remember there was a story a while back, and I apologize for missing her name, but it was one of the whistleblower women. She's this real pretty African American. She has like real curly hair, and she talked about how she was taken under LA, like into these tunnels.
Oh, yeah.
And
Carter,
she had to
right?
do a Diddy as well. What was
it Allie
that?
Carter?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She talked about that in there, about how she'd gone down there several times. And so, yeah, it's amazing how you go into these stories and it's almost like that was part of their plan, was that once you start researching one thing, it leads into another thing. And then you almost get off track because it's almost overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And it makes me wonder if, I don't know, there's got to be some type of MK Ultra, CIA sort of thing of like, let's make it as confusing as possible and make it it's so intricate that people have a hard time tying things together.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is public. Like we know about Epstein, right? Everyone knows about Epstein. This included, celebrities, politicians, yet not one person has been arrested. And no one thinks that's weird. And now with Diddy, same thing, but on the West Coast, not one person has been arrested other than Diddy and other than Epstein and his girlfriend. That's weird. That is weird. Like, we should be asking more questions. WikiLeaks, where they exposed Hillary Clinton's laptop and Anthony Weiner stuff and like all this stuff, it's there. I mean, we all could see it and read it and it's real. But like you said, this mind control stuff, if they say it's a conspiracy enough times, people will not believe what their eyes are showing them because they've been programmed to believe it's a conspiracy. That's crazy. Yeah. It must be made up. And I mean, I was like that at one point in time.
Oh, absolutely. I think we all have been. And I think that it's funny. I was telling a buddy of mine at work, I said, because and I'll be honest, like what really got me interested again in the Isaac Kappy thing was my aggravation with the whole completely messed up flop with them releasing the Epstein files. Mm-hmm. What was that? A week ago, 2 weeks ago, when that whole botched bullshit. And and that just ignited this anger in me. And it was one of those things, like, I, even for a couple of days, I was like, okay, I'm going to give him a little bit of leeway. Like, maybe there's something holding him up. And at this point, it's this feeling of, like, we've got played. Like, we got played. They dangled this carrot in front of us to try to, and again, if I'm completely wrong, and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are doing everything they can, and they're so, I will completely eat my words and apologize. But as of right now, I have this enormous anger about that, because it was something that is so terribly awful but important for people to see, and I feel like it was just tossed around like a volleyball. It was not taken seriously, and that it upset me greatly.
You know what I know I'm not the only one that thinks this, but we know that this guy was tied up with like the Mossad, but also the CIA. It's one and the same, it's one and the same. And I think whether he was an informant or an actual agent, I don't know. But I think this whole thing was set up by the CIA and or the Mossad to blackmail high profile people. And, so now people that maybe mean well, like Pam Bondi, that come in and see like, holy shit, our government, our agencies were so intertwined with this. It's like, what do you do at that point, And there's no other explanation for why not one other arrest was made, and why he wasn't arrested for years and years and years, even though they knew it was happening.
And I'll absolutely agree with that, honey. I think the part that for me is upsetting is that if they would just get on live TV and I don't know, I guess I just want them to explain it. And I feel like it's been radio silence. Like, there's been a couple of things from Pam Bondi that, in my opinion, it was like she was answering a question with a question. She wasn't really getting. And I understand that they're in a very, is it precarious is the word? I guess precarious position. I understand that, but I just feel like it could be handled so much more genuine. I wish they could just get it and be like, hey, this is messed up. We're doing our best. You need to be patient, but they're not. And that bothers me.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how I originally had gotten, really interested, because, and I actually wrote on here, I wanted to give a shout out. There's a really neat lady named Donna Marie on X. And she's really what interested me, because I had always seen clips of the Isaac Kappy interviews. He used to do a lot, I believe it's on 4chan is the name of it. He used to do a lot of stuff on there. And he would do basically live events. So as he was talking, he would be reading comments and questions from people. Mm-hmm. Well, Donna Marie was the first one to actually release the entire clip. I'd never seen the entire clip, so I happened to watch it. And as I was watching, it just blew me away, because what I was taking from Isaac Kappy, I mean, he was very well spoken. You could tell he was a little wound up, but he was very well spoken. He was able to articulate what he was saying very clearly. He did express a lot of emotion in it, but of course, it's a very heavy emotional subject. And one of the things I loved about his videos, and I'll play some clips in a little while, is, again, I mentioned him being very genuine, is he talks in there about how hard it was for him to accept this in the beginning. And that, I think, I could completely relate to, because like you said so perfectly earlier, like when I first started hearing this stuff, and I'd say probably 5 years ago, 10 years ago was when I really started kind of hearing whispers of it. I remember being like, there is no way, like, hurting children and people just purposely hurting children are like, such a small, minute, tiny part of society, like that's just, they're evil, that, and then over time we're seeing more and more. I mean, you see the Diddies, you see the, I have his name written down. Let me see if I can remember it. You see these guys that are working in like Nickelodeon and stuff, Weinstein, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That absolutely blew my damn mind. Yeah. And it takes me back to that story I told you last time I was on about this guy that I knew. I worked with him, and nice guy. Like I would see him, and we'd give each other a hug and ask each other how we were doing, everything like that. And I found out he was a child molester. And it blew my mind because I remember thinking, I always thought I had a decent radar on people, especially being older. I had zero clue, you know?
Okay, that's why I am freaked out by Gavin Newsom because we just talked about him on the last episode, but like he's so charismatic and charming, and it makes me think like look at all these different serial killers like Bundy
Yeah.
and Dahmer. They all had that where they could
Oh, yeah.
totally manipulate people into thinking like, oh, they're so charming and sweet and gentle. And so it's scary because your spidey senses don't really go off, but yet like, well, there's been psychopaths before that are just that good. They are that good.
It's an incredible, I will say, a very scary gift that they have, which is where when someone is that, I guess it would be sociopathic. I don't really know if that'd be the right way to categorize it, but they are so charming that they can make you absolutely disagree with your own, like, you get that gut feeling. It can make you literally disagree with your own gut feeling.
Yeah.
And yeah, honey, and then they can get people to do just about anything, and it's that's why I think it's important and that's why I support you and Tara so much with what you're doing and so many of the other incredible podcasts out there, because you're giving people a way that if they choose to go down that of taking the red pill or waking up, it gives them such a clear view that these are normal people just living their lives trying to share the information that they've learned over time. And I think that that's part of the problem, I would say, with society is people just don't talk anymore. You know what I mean? I want to talk to people even if we disagree. I want to talk. I want to hear your side of it, And on the flip side of that too, it's that idea that a lot of people these days go into a conversation automatically just completely accepting that you are wrong in what you're saying. And I don't like that. And I'll say that because I have talked to people that I'm very much conservative, but I've talked to people that have liberal values, and I've been like, you know what? That's a really cool perspective. I've never thought about it that way. Maybe I don't agree, maybe I do. But that's what I think the problem is that even in these situations where it may be so, like this whole situation with Kappy and all the things that he got into are so out of the norm of what people are thinking about, but they just choose not to talk about it. You have to talk about it. That's the only way.
See, and that's what I struggled with for a really long time because obviously I'm into manifestation, the law of attraction, and I'm like, this isn't good to focus on these negative things. And two, like I'm a mom, and you don't want to believe that there's people that are that sick and twisted out there. But then on the same time, the same like side of that whole spiritual aspect of it that I've come to, think for myself is that there has to be a light shown on the darkness. Like you can't just ignore something like this because look at all throughout history, if people just ignored slavery or just ignored what the Nazis were doing, so on and so forth, it's happened throughout history. It would still be going on. The reason it's not is because there were people that came forward and talked about it. And at the time, they were all considered crazy conspiracy theorists.
People thought they were crazy. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I just think about that and it's like, well, someone's got to speak up about it. I mean, it's going to keep happening until, more and more people become aware and they just can't hide from it anymore.
100%, hun. And that's one thing I despise about the mainstream media is that if you were to say something and it was blatantly wrong and you knew it was blatantly wrong and you knew that it was going to cause problems, there needs to be some type of a way to try to fix that. Either you admit to being wrong and that you learned a better way and now you have the right information, but they don't do that. They don't do that. No. It's there's no accountability. And that's what I think, again, I say about the mainstream media that just makes me sick. And I've had people, like I had a guy this last week that was, I thought was a friend of mine that just completely unfriended me and blocked me because I basically told him, like, hey, man, you need to look outside of mainstream media. And his whole thing was, why would they lie to us? Why? And it and then when I started trying to explain my side, he just blocked me.
Yeah.
And it was just it's aggravating, but it's also just kind of funny because it's like, you
Yeah,
don't
and it's
see,
like
but
you can't really wake someone up to it that absolutely doesn't want to wake up to it. They have to have that red pill moment, and it
yeah,
usually comes from them finding it on their own.
the
And
hard way,
yeah,
usually. Yeah.
exactly. And that's why it's I mean, I cannot believe there's people I personally know that still think that the news is the gospel, and like anything outside of that is crazy. And it's hard to believe with all the technology we have. I mean, you can research anything on the internet, doesn't take that long. They just take the word of the media over doing their own research. And what are you going to do? I mean, you can't force someone to see it.
Well, and again, and that's why I'm so proud of you and Tara, you girls, all the effort you put in. Anyway, I could talk all day about that, but let me get back to some Kappy stuff here.
Yeah.
So, in March of 2017, he was hanging out with Seth Green, and that's when he dropped the whole thing about chicken. Now, I wanted to just kind of share, and again, I know this is kind of a disclaimer everybody puts out. Everything you find on the internet, someone's going to try to debunk it in some way. That's their right to do so. This is what I found when I was searching. So basically, there was an FBI bulletin in 2007, and it was basically pedophile codes. So like things that pedophiles will use to try to avoid getting caught. And these are just a few of them. So they're basically symbols or verbiage. And which I didn't know this, but I guess pasta stands for a little boy. Walnut is like a child of color. Let's see. Pizza is a girl. Cheese is a little girl. Chicken is a young boy. And then there's several others on there, but those were just some of the ones. And when I went through that, and they had all these, I don't know if you can you can't really see it, but there were all these symbols. And again, I thought, okay, don't go too far down the rabbit hole. Don't start seeing things just because you had the hint of it in your mind. But when I start going down, I mean, these are symbols you see all through the music industry, all through movies.
At Disney?
At Disney? I mean, it was amazing, honey. Like some of the award shows and the musical performances. I mean, these symbols were, and this was from an FBI bulletin.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that. So that just blew my damn mind. But all right, so after this whole thing happened with Seth Green, he talked about it a little bit in his video. I think he kind of just got out of there. He didn't really say much. And as you can imagine, like, Kappy was devastated. This is like one of his dear friends. He just found out one of his dear friends is a child molester. I mean, that's some rough shit right there. And then from what I believe from there, and just from the research I did, I think from that moment, so that was in 2017, I think it just all became too much for him. I think that all that information flooding in, which I can only say, there are times where, I'll call Tara and I'll be crying, I don't understand why people are so bad and they're hurting children and hurting animals, and And she's so great because she'll kind of calm me down. She has that real wonderful, cop mentality of black and white, and, and she'll give me some good advice. But sometimes it's like my brain just can't handle it. I can't fathom. I have a hard time if I hurt someone's feelings. I can't imagine the things that these people are doing. And again, a lot of it, depending on how you look at it, no, actually not depending on how you look at it. Just the fact is, whenever you hurt a child, either it be sexually or, you're trying to harvest their organs or take their, whatever, you're doing it for your own personal gain. You're trying to satisfy some creepy sexual thing that you have. And that is almost too much for my brain to handle. But then that goes into stuff like we were talking about earlier, people that steal money from old people that do all these horrible things where it is for a personal gain, but you are harming another person.
Yeah.
And I can't get my head around that. And so I think basically that was kind of what happened to Kappy. I think he just basically spiraled from there. And I think it was very hard because he already had all this. He was privy to information that normally most of us aren't from being in that world and being in that lifestyle. So from there, he started releasing information about the Hollywood elites. And he used several different platforms. He used 4chan, which for some of your listeners, if they don't know what that is, I didn't really know what that is. It's basically like a sharing platform. And there's a lot of, I believe, forgive me, 4chan people if I'm saying it wrong, but I think it's just a way for people to kind of do a lot of live stuff, and they'll play video games on it and stuff like that. So he would release these really interesting, videos just talking about it. And I have one here that I can play, but basically he was releasing on 4chan, Twitter, and YouTube. And Twitter and YouTube were heavily censored, but he was still able to build up quite a decent following of just like people that felt the same way he did, and also fellow conspiracy theorists. Excuse me. Let's see. And one of his messages, which kind of resonated with me, was like, why silence the messengers? If it's not true, if this is all bullshit, if Seth Green is not a child molester and Tom Hanks is not a child molester, take me to court. Take me to court. Let's talk about it. Show me, you know what I mean? Let me show you what I've seen.
Yeah.
And so I was going to ask your opinion on that, because that was something that really resonated with me.
I remember seeing a video of Isaac Kappy saying, okay, if I'm lying, sue me. Sue me. Yeah. Literally sue me, so we can go to court, because discovery will show everything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, he never was sued says a lot. And let's not forget, it's not just Isaac Kappy. Macaulay Culkin has been calling this out for years. The Coreys,
yeah.
And he, he overdosed, and the other one's like blowing the whistle. Kanye.
Who was that? What was her name, honey? Was it Marina Abramovich? The one that said that Tom Hanks was hurting her or something? Was that her? Or am I mixing up her name with somebody else?
Marina Abramovich. She's the one who is like in on it with all the celebrities. She's like that creepy.
I'm sorry, I'm mixing up her name. Yeah.
Something.
Yep. No, exactly, honey. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been so many child stars that have come out, and then the whole thing with like Kanye, where he came out and started exposing Balenciaga, and he's like, they're gonna come after me just like they did last time. They're gonna try to medicate me, and sure enough, he disappeared for months, and he comes back, and it's like he's a completely different person, and all of a sudden he's wearing Balenciaga again. So it's like, if it were just Isaac Kappy, I'd be like, okay, maybe he was mentally ill, But I mean, there are a lot of people, aside from who I just mentioned, that have all said similar things, all at different time frames, in the 80s and the 90s, even going back
and
to...
they were blacklisted.
Yes.
They were blacklisted,
Yeah.
A lot of them.
So there's something
And honey,
going on.
that was one of these. I'll play this clip real quick. So this is basically just a clip from one of Isaac Kappy's, I'd say most viewed from, I believe it was from 4chan. And it's not playing. I'm sorry. Hold on.
I always have issues with clips.
It's so funny. It's like, and I always feel bad because when I watch you guys, I'm like, stupid phone's not playing for them.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if I can get
that all the time.
I don't know why it's not doing it. Let's see. Try it again.
Who has been accusing Tom Hanks? Steven Spielberg is a pedophile. Oh, I'm not going to talk about Tom Hanks either, who is also a pedophile. There's this girl, Sarah Ruth Ashcraft, on Twitter, who has been accusing Tom Hanks of raping her when she was 13.
That was her name.
Sold her to Tom Hanks. It is so rampant. It is so bad. But watch for the symbolism, because these people out themselves with the symbols. At the very top levels, these people are just sick and psycho. Look into the Rothschild family. You heard it's cannibals. Yeah, there is cannibalism. The higher you go, the more sick it gets. A lot of people are kind of born into this. They grow up in it. They are abused. And through the abuse, especially as a child, you can break someone's subconscious mind. Look into MK Ultra. It's music, it's film, it's art. Look into Marina Abramovich. Is Oprah a pedophile? Well, let's see. Hanks, Weinstein, I mean, the company she keeps, as rich as she is, I have a feeling she is very high up in the cult. And this, make no mistake, this is a cult. There is a widespread cult that is worldwide, and it's fucking bad, guys.
Here is a Gmail trick.
Yeah, so that, that is just a clip. It's like, I want to say that whole video was like an hour and a half long, so obviously I can't play it all for you. That was just a clip, though, of some of the people that he was calling out. And I thought it was really interesting that he mentioned the whole Weinstein angle, because Weinstein was like, I mean, he was involved in all of that. And these were people that, just praised him and loved him. And that made me think, who was the guy? Was it Jimmy Savile? Remember Jimmy Savile? He was the guy that was knighted. And it turned out that Jimmy Savile, I don't know if I'm saying it wrong. This guy was knighted, okay? Mm-hmm. And he had been a real big influencer and performer in the BBC for years, right? And he ended up getting convicted. And I don't know if I remember how long he got, but he had literally raped and killed hundreds of children.
Oh my
okay?
God.
And he was best friends with the head of the BBC, and the BBC knew about it for years, and they covered it up. And I'm not making this up, people. Like, you can go out and find all of this information. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can go on, and I always tell people too, when you go on Google, and I know you guys have told them this too, don't go to the first two things on Google that you find. Mm-hmm. You really got to do your research. But
don't trust Google.
Yeah, Jimmy Savile's a sick bastard, okay? Then there was another one I saw the other day, and I'm trying to remember what his name was, but he was a zoologist. I remember this. And this one was like, kind of disclaimer, this is some really, really dark stuff. Going along with the BBC angle, I'm going somewhere with this. He was a zoologist who worked with the BBC on documentaries, right? And his name was Adam Britton. And he was sentenced in 2024. This was less than a year ago. This guy was sentenced and convicted, and he confessed to raping and killing 39 dogs. Okay?
Oh my God.
This is a guy that worked with the BBC. This is a factual thing that happened. And that's why I that guy that I got in a fight with earlier in the week and he unfriended me, I was telling him this, and he's like, you are making that up. You are making that up. And I'm like, you can literally go on and find it. Like, I am not making this up. And that one was, you can go down that rabbit hole, which I didn't want to, but it's awful beyond words.
I think Tara and I stumbled across that rabbit hole because of Doge. They found all these sick and twisted animal experiments, and not just, we're going to test out drugs and things on them. I mean, sick and twisted stuff that I don't even know how a mind came up with the stuff that they were doing. So and
we were funding it with your tax dollars, people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our government was paying.
Yeah, honey. So that was just, oh my gosh. But anyway, so my point is that that was a factual thing that happened. So these factual things happen all the time, and so if they can happen in these certain cases, that means that they can happen anywhere. Okay, and the head of the BBC then started working for the New York Times. And that's a whole nother, and I believe it's New York Times. It might be one of the other newspapers, but so you have this one guy who owns the BBC that covers up all of this horrible stuff. And then he goes into another situation, and he wasn't held accountable for any of those times before. So that's just one person that's in that lifestyle of being among these famous people. Okay. So basically, some of the names, the major players that Kappy had mentioned was Epstein, Tom Hanks, Seth Green, and his wife, Oprah, Weinstein, Marina Abramovich. Sorry, I mixed up her name earlier. The Rothschild family, Steven Spielberg, Jimmy Savile, and many, many others. And so, and I'm so sorry, I'm like talking your ear off, honey. So if you need to jump in, just jump in.
No, I mean, I was just going to say, when he mentioned Steven Spielberg, again, in the beginning, I was like, I don't know. He could just be throwing names around. Well, his daughter, I believe it was, I'm trying to look it up. I believe it was his adopted daughter is a porn star now. And, she says that the sex industry has been healing for her. And, here's the thing, like, okay, your adopted dad is the biggest filmmaker of all time. You have all the money in the world, all the opportunities in the world, and you choose to go into porn. There's trauma there. Like, you would only do that if there's some deep, deep, deep trauma and wounds going on. So when I heard his name, I think that because, whether you like it or not, I kind of judge people based on their kids. You know what I mean? Like, look at Hunter Biden. It's like if someone's kids are, and yes, there's mental illness and all that kind of stuff, but, just widely speaking, if there's something like that happening, there's some deeper issue going on. So to know that about his daughter and then to also know he's one of the people being named, okay, well, let's not ignore it then. Let's at least look into it a little bit,
Well said, honey. Yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire. And it goes back to what Kappy was saying. I am all about admitting if I was wrong. And I think Kappy felt the same way. Like, let's talk about it. Let's get it out there. Let's stop hiding the stuff or putting it in the shadows, like out of the shadows. Absolutely, honey. And I agree with you 100%. And I think that was, for him, he had actually, it was funny because Kappy made this, again, he was a very theatrical guy, but he made this video, and I did have it queued up, but it wouldn't play for us. We tried. But it was this video, and it was all about Epstein Island, and it was called like the Epstein Island video or whatever. And when you watch it, it's both like it's sad and funny and just blows your mind at the same time, because in this video, he's showing pictures of Epstein Island and like some of the things that went on there. And these are all things that were factually proven. Mm-hmm. Like, the guy supposedly committed suicide, and that's a whole nother episode I'm sure we should do sometime. But, and I think it's just, I think people looked at it as a joke, but if you actually looked at what the message he was trying to get across, it was completely true.
And there were like 280 victims of Epstein
that
Island
they know of.
So it's like, it's not like it was one person saying, oh, something. I mean, hundreds of people.
Yep.
So come on. And then, not to get us off topic, but I have to throw this out there. Why was the photo on the Ellen set that's right behind her a picture of the building on Epstein Island? Like, it's stuff like that. Like you said earlier, the symbols are everywhere. And I think I've heard it's this whole karmic retribution thing. Like, if you put it in plain sight, it's like you're telling everyone, you're like saying your sins, so to speak. But it's just wild. And once you start noticing those symbols, you see them everywhere.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Honey, you nailed it. I remember, it was either Kappy or Alex Jones talking about this symbol, where they would go like this.
I can't see. The screen's
sorry, where they would go like this.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see? And I remember again thinking, oh, come on. You're just trying to find something. Holy crap. If you watch, that symbol comes up all the time. And it's from this famous, like, depiction of this. It's either the devil or some type of demon.
Yeah.
Called Baphomet. I don't know if you've heard that expression, but where he's going like this in the picture, and you're like, what?
Yep.
Like
that
what?
lady
And
on
then
the plane. Remember that lady that freaked out on the plane, and she's like,
"You are not real."
Yeah,
yeah.
She did that symbol. Like, it's so it's like, well, what was that all about? But just it's like, was she MK Ultra or something? Like, who knows? But yeah, you see it everywhere.
And and it's that whole thing too of hey man, I'm not saying all of it's true, but even if just one little bit is true, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And it's like, I love how they talk about, like, even like with children being harmed. One child is too much.
Yeah.
So, I don't like this whole thing of, oh, well, it was only, so many. What? If it was one, it was too much.
Well, that's why I was so upset about the 300,000 missing migrant children, because I knew this background going into that whole story, and we still don't have answers. Still to this day, we
And
have no
mainstream
idea.
media wouldn't talk about it. They
Nope.
wouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And then the people that were talking about it, that were trying to get it out there, were labeled, i.e., conspiracy theorists, you know, and they were downgraded. And that's one that just really, oh, honey, you said it perfectly. Like, that shit gets me so aggravated, because it's almost like a cheating spouse. Like, the mainstream media and the corrupt part of the governments are like a cheating spouse. Like, they will tell you all day long about what you're doing and how what you're doing is wrong. And then when you try to call them out on their actions, you're the crazy one.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. That didn't happen. When you know damn well it didn't happen, but when they have that type of control over you, it makes you start questioning yourself. And it's that whole gaslighting thing. And there is a lot of power in that, unfortunately. And I think that that's another reason I'm so proud of you and Tara and other influencers who are like, no, wait a minute, I'm going to think for myself. Even if I do get hate over it, I'm still going to think for myself. And I'm not going to allow this person to gaslight me into not seeing the things that my eyes are seeing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just sick, though, because it's like, that's immediately what I thought. They're all going to these, you know, elites. That's where they're going. That's why no one's looking into it, because the people that control everything are behind it.
Yep. No, honey, well said. And that leads right in perfectly to this other thing I have on Kappy. So basically, and I do apologize, I couldn't find exactly how the progression went with this, but Kappy had hinted that he had a video that was like a kill switch, or as he said, it was like a dead man switch. And basically what that is it's like a piece of information that you have. In this case would have been a video where if I die or you try to kill me, this video is going to come out, kind of thing. It's almost like an insurance policy, right? And so it's a form of leverage, is a better way to put it. So basically, this video, when you find it, it's a very short clip. And again, these are just the things that I saw. I don't know what it is, but this is what I saw with my own eyes. The video, it appears to be a Middle Eastern bathhouse, right? I guess those are pretty big in Europe, which I've heard of them. I've never been to one, but they're actually, I think a lot of them are not nefarious. It's like kind of like a men's club where they go and, you know, whatever. But in this one, it looked to be a Middle Eastern bathhouse. And there were these young girls. And I'm talking, I don't have kids, but I could tell these girls had to be under 10 years old. I mean, they were these little, sweet little, you know, innocent little girls. And they were very scantily clad, and they were basically delivering hot water to these rooms. And this is rooms where these, like, older men are, right? And these are older men that are not dressed, okay? And so, you know, and I had wrote in my notes, but sadly, him releasing that was not enough to save him. And then basically something happened, and we don't know exactly what happened, but in that time, and this was a very short time of him releasing that video, that last video, and then that was like his last little kill switch video. And then he released his very last video. And I actually have that clip I'll play for you. It's a very long clip, so I'm only going to play a little piece of it. But from all the research I did, it was so sad because he had gone from being this very, like, strong opinioned, very kind of eloquently spoken man to, in this video, it was like something happened and he was terrified, and you could hear it in his voice. He knew something bad was happening. And the interesting thing is, in this video, as opposed to his other ones, if you go look him up, completely different background. It almost looked like he was in a hotel room, or he was somewhere. He wasn't in his normal background where he normally shot his videos. And I mean, I'll let the video talk for itself, but I basically just wrote, like, in his final video, it was like so uncomfortable and it was very out of character, and it kind of told a little bit of his mental state. So we don't know what took him to that, but let me just go ahead and play that for you guys here. All right.
The story of Teresa.
I'm not suicidal. I'm not suicidal. Did I lie about Seth Green? No, Seth Green's a pedophile. Am I afraid of something? I'm afraid of, no, I should be, because bad things are coming my way. I can assure you of that. I'm gonna go now. And maybe I'll come back. We'll see. But stay in the light. Stay in the moment. Maybe I'll be back later. I love you. Take care, okay? I'm not suicidal.
So it's, again, this is a very small clip, but the reason I wanted to play that clip in particular is that through the whole video he was very just morose and kind of sad, and you know, he talked about things, but when he got to the part where he said, "I'm not suicidal," that was the first time in the whole video where you see him kind of come alive, and he's very firm in what he's saying.
Yeah.
Like, I am not suicidal.
Yeah.
And that's not where my headspace is. And then he kind of trails off, and that is so interesting to me, ergo, because of what ends up happening. And
Yeah,
so
why would someone make a point to say that and then turn around and committing suicide? I mean, come on.
And it's so fascinating, honey, because it's like a timeline. It's a timeline of, you see how it all happens. He has that situation happen with Seth Green, supposedly, and then you just see it going off. Now, I will fully admit, and my heart goes out to anybody that has any type of mental illness, schizophrenia, that kind of thing. But the only difference that I'm seeing, and I've known people with schizophrenia, is that it seems like they're not as eloquently spoken. They're not able to really articulate their thoughts, and they're not able to get out. Well, a lot of his videos, he always stuck to the same thing.
Yeah.
He didn't go off into all these different tangents on things. That he stuck to those same things that were important to him. And so basically, and this gets into like his they say suicide again. I personally do not believe it's a suicide. Or if it was under very serious duress. But yeah, if you just go ahead and talk, honey, and I'll try to find this clip for you, because this was the one that really will get you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, is this the one about Tom Hanks, too? With the...
No. So this is the one, remember that guy I was telling you about? And actually, I wanted to give him a shout out. I have his name up here. So it's a YouTube channel, and the gentleman's YouTube channel is named Sobering Stories, and it's such a great channel. But this video in particular, and the video itself, I believe, is 45 minutes, but this was just a piece of his video that was so fascinating to me because, oh, here it is. Okay, cool. He literally nails it with the timeline. So there's a fascinating timeline to this because Kappy releases that last Kill Switch video, right? Then he does his very last talking video, okay? And in the video, he talks about Epstein, right? The week after that is when Epstein gets arrested, okay?
Really?
You swear to God. So let me
I
play
didn't
it.
know
This guy
any of
does a
that.
way better job than I ever could explaining it, so I'm going to let him do it.
Internet immediately turns on Tom Hanks. America's dad is now suddenly guilty of all of the things that Isaac Kappy was accusing him of. Obviously, that is the reason why the comments were turned off on this post, because he was probably getting...
Sorry, he's talking a little
hate on
tail
this
end of
post.
something
People
a minute
were
ago.
accusing him likely of being responsible for Isaac Kappy's passing, and that's kind of the widely accepted, circulated theory that's going on, is that this was maybe like a hit that was put out on Isaac because of these crazy accusations that he was making against Tom Hanks, Seth Green, all of these people, and honestly, he was starting to get a little out of control with it. He was even talking about Epstein, trying to out Epstein. And you want to hear another weird coincidence? Just a few months later, on July 6th, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein is arrested on child trafficking charges. You can't make this stuff up. On August 10th, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein self-exited in his jail cell. So let's just go through a quick recap, you guys. May 1st, Brackets and Jackets video, Epstein Island edition. May 10th, random, weird, sad, live broadcast on Periscope is posted where Kappy is talking about very cryptic, concerning, confusing things, saying he did something really, really bad, and talking about how he's probably not going to be around for much longer. Also releases an Instagram post talking about how he's made serious mistakes and basically alluding to the fact that he is thinking about self-exiting. However, He very clearly states in his live broadcast that he's not in any sort of headspace to self-exit. May 13th, he is found on historic Route 66 after being hit by an F-150 falling off the Transwestern Road Bridge in Belmont, Arizona. July 6th, Jeffrey Epstein arrested. August 10th, Jeffrey Epstein self-exits. What a strange timeline, you guys. It seems connected, it seems weird, and it feels nefarious with the widespread
Yeah, guys, go check out that video on YouTube. It's Sobering Stories. Is the guy? He's great. I think the name of the video is Why Did He Jump? But he put Diddy like Diddy. So yeah, and again, that's one of those things where maybe none of them are connected, but by gum, it certainly seems
I don't
like
believe
they
in
are.
coincidences, you know.
No.
But what he was talking about there with Tom Hanks was before the this was in April, so this was a month before this happened to Isaac Kappy. Tom Hanks posted a photo of a glove on the road with the caption, quote, "Historic Route 66 roadkill. I hope not." And Isaac Kappy died on historic Route 66. And so people were saying, like, this was Tom Hanks, like, threatening him, you know, hey, if you don't shut up, like, you're going to be roadkill, which who knows? Tom Hanks still has this post up, by the way. He never took it down. He turned the comments off, but he never took it down. But, like, I've seen the photos, right? And it's like an overpass that he supposedly threw himself off of into oncoming traffic. That you just don't hear that very often. You know, when someone tries to kill themselves, there's lots of methods we hear repeatedly. That's typically if someone's going to jump, it's like you're going to jump off of a high bridge or something. This was like an overpass that wasn't that high.
It didn't even look like you would die if you jumped off it. Like
Right.
you'd get hurt,
Right.
but no.
And then on Wikipedia, like the official story is they say, well, there just happened to be two people that were there and like saw him do this. So it's like, well, who were those people and what did they say, you know? And the whole thing's just strange, especially since he was so adamant he's not suicidal.
Honey, absolutely. And there's so much I want to add to that. So the picture that Tom Hanks had posted, this is so crazy, okay? When you zoom in on the picture, he's got the little, I think it's like a glove, or is it a glove on there? Whatever.
So,
Okay, when you zoom in, there's a cap, like a cap that would
Like
go on
Kappy.
a bottle. And it has a P written on the top. Kappy.
oh, wow.
Right? I'm not making this up. Like this, you can go find this. Then, yes, there was supposedly two teens that saw him and tried to intervene and stop him. I have not been able to find their names. I've not been able to find any of their statements, anything like that. I had told you guys I had sent in for like the Freedom of Information, and I haven't heard back yet. It might just take time. I don't know, but
Well, if they can't release the information. How convenient if they were teenagers.
And then it's interesting too because a lot of people were like, "Oh, he was probably on drugs. He was probably just completely high. I wasn't thinking." There's no report of him being on any substances that I could find personally. And it seems like with the way the media works, if it was that easy, that's the first thing they would have thrown out. Oh, he was high on meth, or he was high on, okay, whatever. But they didn't. And it's just radio silence. And that not only pisses me off, but it makes me think, why would you need to hide it? Why would you need to hide that? Why wouldn't that be out there?
Right.
Yeah. And that can be applied to so many things that have happened. Like we still don't know shit about Thomas Crooks, the whole thing. Like there's so many different people that, why keep it hidden?
Was cremated before anyone could investigate. Like, I mean, yeah, this isn't anything new. Like, and that's the thing. There's a fall guy. Epstein was the fall guy. Isaac Kappy, whatever. Like, there's different fall guys. Diddy's the fall guy again. Just he hopefully has a bodyguard because before any information can come out, I'm sure they'll try to get to him. But yeah, like this, it doesn't add up, but we're never going to get answers. And we don't have anyone with authority, any real true journalists or media, other than people, podcasters and YouTubers that are talking about it. It's all
Yeah.
just getting swept under the rug. And with the Tom
And
Hanks thing, can I just say one other thing about that I thought
yeah,
was
yeah.
weird? Because he's gone on, like, those late night shows, like Jimmy Fallon, I think it was, and talked about this weird thing he has on Instagram for, like, if he sees gloves or like a shoe or something, and he like posts a photo of it, and it's really weird. Well, people were saying there was a post, and this is totally separate, different time frame, but there was a post where he had a glove, again, a photo of a glove. Right next to it, there were the letters SRC USA spray painted right next to the glove. Like, this wasn't like, oh, it's hidden if you look. I mean, it was blatant right there. So SRC USA, okay, who cares? Well, people are saying when you Google it, nothing comes up. But if you search for it on like the dark web or like another engine, it pulls up all sorts of child pornography. So they think it's some sick, twisted, symbol, like all the other
Yep.
symbols that we were talking about. And so here's the thing with Tom Hanks. Just like I had that question with Steven Spielberg, with Tom Hanks, number one, he has a son that's like supposedly normal. He has another son that's really messed up. So that makes me wonder, like, what trauma did he go through? But number two, he knows this. That's why he turned the comments off on that post, because he knows people are relating this to Isaac Kappy. So if you have nothing to hide, wouldn't you, first of all, delete the post, but second of all, just come out and say, like, you guys,
Clarify.
this is,
Yeah.
but I don't, as far as I know, I don't think he's done that. Maybe he has. I haven't seen it. And the
Nope.
post is still
He's
there.
too busy. He's too busy going on SNL acting like a racist white person.
Right, yeah. Who can forget that?
But yeah, no, and I completely agree. To my knowledge, he's never addressed it at all. And it goes back to, like we were saying before, the truth will set you free. And if the truth is that you are the beloved actor that I thought you were, and you were this kind, wonderful man that has never hurt anybody, and you're wonderful and amazing, just like I hoped you were, I will admit all day long. But I just feel like there's too many unanswered questions. And like you said, for them not to just come out and address it, just address it. I mean, part of what you get paid for is that you're someone that everybody knows. Everybody knows your name. Everybody wants to know what's going on with you. So just address it, and it's the same thing. As far as I know, Seth Green has also never addressed this whole thing.
Yeah, they've all stayed very silent about it. And, same with all the people on the Epstein list. I mean, yeah, the official documents aren't released, but we've all seen the flight logs. None of those people have come out and explained it. The only one and only person who testified or sat down for a deposition and came out and said, yes, I was on the flight log, here's why, and gave their official story under oath, was Donald Trump. That's it. Not one other person. So what are you hiding?
And I appreciate you, like, I guess, giving me this little bit of time to kind of get on my soapbox. But I really want to reach out to, like, Kash Patel and Pam Bondi to just be genuine. And I understand that you are handling things that I could never possibly imagine or handle myself. I'm sure that there are things that you're going through, but people are holding out for this because our whole lives have had these people on these pedestals. You know what I mean? I have always, throughout my whole life, put these stars and these, musicians on these pedestals. That was like that was the epitome of greatness. That was where you wanted to be. That was what you wanted to emulate yourself as. You know what I mean? Children do that with sports stars, with movie stars, you know. Yes, is it going to absolutely crumble people's bubbles to find out some of these names? Absolutely. But there are some situations where ignorance is only going to hurt, and this is a huge situation because there are people getting hurt. That's a fact. Who's doing it, I couldn't tell you, but the fact that children are getting hurt is an absolute fact. And so the fact that it's been radio silence, I mean, I go on X multiple times a day and just refresh to try to see if there's anything, even a word from Cash, like, hey guys, this is the reason it didn't come out in day one. I'm sorry, we're working on it, blah, blah, blah. If Pam actually came out like, you know, I really do like her. You know, I really think that she is a smart lady, but I just am not seeing that dedication to all of us out here who have been holding on to this, just wanting justice for these people. I understand it's not going to stop these children getting hurt. Children are always going to get hurt because there's always going to be sick people out there. But if you can take these people who we've held on a pedestal, and some of them are going to be that. They're going to be great and they're going to be awesome. I have no doubt there. But some of them aren't. And the fact that you have those rotten apples in with the bunch, you know, we've got to do something about it. And I had the most beautiful conversation with this incredible man on X the other day. And I was talking about how one of the reasons that, I mean, personally, I believe that all of these cuts they're making in the government are so good is that it's kind of like that idea of like having something that's diseased, you know, something like I was like having a limb that's diseased. The best thing that they can do at that point is cut it off and get rid of that disease, you know, and just start fresh. And I'm like that. And it was so cool because he wrote it. He goes, yeah, he goes, actually, I just had cancer and they ended up cutting off and I'm doing all better. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. You know, but it was just a thought that, you know, we need this as a nation and as people to move on. We can't move on if we know that there are people that are not held accountable. And we've dealt with it for since before I was born. You know, I watched my father, you know, get aggravated about it. And I know I've talked about that before with, I think the biggest problem, like my dad was an intelligent guy and he had some amazing ideas. Like I feel that way about Alex Jones. Like I think Alex Jones has some amazing ideas, but the problem is that their delivery is not great. My dad's delivery, he was a very, very gruff man and people were usually kind of taken aback by what he was saying. But he was a smart guy. And it's like with Alex Jones, I think the same way. Like, I like Alex Jones a lot. And there's other people out there that I think have great ideas, but their delivery needs some work. And I'm not saying my delivery is stellar either. I'm just saying that I think the biggest way to get the point across to people is to talk to people like they're people and just be genuine and be real. You don't have to come out with all these fancy words to describe what you're thinking, what you're feeling. So anyway, honey, yeah, I thank you so much for letting us talk about this. Like it was the last picture of Kappy, I made a note in here. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see the picture of Kappy where he's sitting on the bridge?
No, I don't think I have.
It broke my heart. Like, so it was from a dash cam. It was some guy just driving by that bridge and happened to capture a picture of Kappy sitting there. And you see him and it's like, it's so, God, it makes me want to cry. He looks he looks like he's not even there. Like he's sitting on the bridge with his back towards the road and he's really thin and he looks so tired and he's just sitting there and you see his little cute curly hair, you know, that he had. And it's just, and I don't know, I guess throughout my research of this, and who's to know? Maybe Kappy was a terrible child molesting cult member cannibalist. I don't know. But I can only go off the things that I've seen, and what I saw was a guy that seemed very genuine. He seemed like a guy that was a good person that could not handle all of this evil coming at him all at once. And I think that he didn't lose the battle because he got out the most incredible little bit of knowledge that people latched onto, and that built onto so many other things. So,
Yeah, I mean, despite everyone saying he was crazy and a conspiracy theorist, his videos are still out there. People are still waking up to it. It did make a big impact. And
yeah.
I that's the thing. I think the more people that talk about it and don't let up, the more chance we have of something actually happening, because what they want is for everyone to just forget about it and move on.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's happened for so long, and now because of social media, they can't contain it, which is probably why they want to ban things like TikTok and why they pretty much own YouTube.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so man, it's a really sad story. Regardless of whether he did that to himself or someone else did it to him, it's horrible, and he was in a dark place, but he exposed a lot of shit. And like you said, I think in the beginning we talked about no one ever did that whole time. No one ever sued him. No one ever came out and tried to defend themselves.
Defamation lawsuits or.
Those happen all the time, and they have the money to do it, and they didn't, because there's too
Yep.
much evidence there, is what I'm assuming. And again, this is all just, who knows? I don't have the answer. We're just posing the question. Why?
And I love being in this. I love, I know we've said this like a ton since Trump got in office, but regardless of not if you're Republican or Democrat or you're whatever you are, what a time to be alive, because this is the first time in my life where you are hearing so many different viewpoints.
Yeah.
For our whole childhood and for when we were younger, you would, you might see a clip or two here on the news, or you might hear your parents talking about something, or, the guy at the gas station. But now it's getting these different platforms that are free to people. Podcasts are just incredible. And I am so blessed, and we are so blessed that we have this incredible, easy access to knowledge,
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's why we keep doing it. And I'm grateful. I know Tara's grateful for you. You're busting your butt, sending out emails and doing all the things to try to get the word out there. And,
Thank you.
you never know what episode or what thing someone might hear that wakes them up or gets them to start thinking. And you just, that's all you can do. And I feel good.
And question it,
Right.
question it. If you don't agree with me, totally cool. Go do your research.
Yeah.
Question what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And be open-minded. I mean, that's one thing I've had to learn as I've gotten older. Now you and Tara are the same way. When I was younger, when you're younger, you're invincible. You know everything. And as you get older, you start realizing, like, I don't know shit. So I'm gonna do my research. Yeah, yeah. It's like I'm gonna do my research. I'm gonna make sure that I know what I'm talking about, but I'm also gonna be open-minded to the fact that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Nobody knows everything. And so, I think that's the one issue that I'm seeing definitely with the left, is that any opposing viewpoint to them is wrong. There's no opening or no light able to shine in at all. You are wrong because you don't think the way I do. And I just disagree with that so greatly. I have very conservative views, but I understand that I don't know it all. And I'm more than willing to be open to different ideas. And I know you guys are too. So,
Yeah.
but just like you said, I feel the same way about you guys. I'm so proud of the two of you. And I am just honored that I even get to be any little bit of a part of this, because you two ladies just blow me away with all of your research and all of your effort. And I don't think people understand, not most people understand, how much work these girls put into this. It blows my mind. Like, yeah, I send out emails like, hey, be on the podcast. These girls are researching multiple sites hours every day to do this stuff. And then dealing with hateful comments, which I have a hard time because I always want to get on and be mama bear. Like, you leave them alone. They're amazing,
Yeah.
So I'm just so proud. Keep doing what you guys are doing. And I will keep trying to help in any way I can. And,
Well, thank you for
just keep
that.
getting it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. And, when you're doing something that you're passionate about, it doesn't feel hard. It doesn't feel like a lot of work. Even
That's
though
awesome.
It is. It's like it doesn't this is part of your life. Like, you're so into it, you know, and I know you get that because you're into everything we're talking about too. So, yeah, it's definitely something interesting where, you know, someday I'll be looking back at my life and I think I'm going to be so glad that I said what was on my heart and I didn't
Yes.
hold back and I just put it out there. I think if I wouldn't have agreed to do this or I would have stopped doing this, I think I'd have regret, you know? So,
No, you won't.
yeah, I'm just whatever. It is what it is. Some people are going to hate it. Okay, at least I put it out there.
Well, I love it.
Well, thanks, Erin.
And
Thank you so
Tara,
much.
Tara, we love you. We miss you.
Thank you, Tara. Yeah, I know. I've been cheating on my work wife.
Yeah, yeah.
God. Well, thanks for all. You did so much research for this episode, and thanks for
Oh,
sharing that and bringing the clips. And yeah, we love a good Erin episode. So
Thank you. Wow.
fun.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you back here next time.